Hey, today we're going to look at chapter 12 in our course text, and we're really just going to focus on the prevalence of social media and what the web does for us as public relations practitioners. Now, we know that it is an everyday part of our life now in PR. In a lot of ways, it has made our professional lives much easier in terms of reaching out and maintaining conversations with our stakeholders. Also, in terms of getting their feedback in real time. But as you know, we've probably all been on the receiving end of an organization or a service that we're really upset about. And it takes us just a few seconds to tweet about it, to post something on Facebook, to Instagram, right? And that means that when you are in that organization and it is your job to manage the reputation and the relationships with stakeholders, if this happens on a Saturday or a Sunday, right? Most likely you're going to be responding out of traditional 9 to 5 hours. So we're going to look at that a little bit more now. So we'll start here by looking at building an effective website. And this is something that typically in public relations, you as a PR specialist or a communication and marketing specialist, you won't be asked to create the website in terms of writing the code, but you will be asked to help populate it. So figuring out what information belongs, what are the headers, what are the subheads, right? So what is the way in which you want to organize information and what information belongs on your website for potential clients or customers? Right? Our book is really good, especially if you look at pages 306 to 307 to give tips, but the most important thing is to keep in mind, what does my user need? What information are they likely seeking? And then if you provide that in a way that's easy to access, then you have done your job. The other thing I want you to think about is traditional tactics that we used to use in public relations, and some of these we still use. Think about the press release, for example, which we're also looking at this week. And those are push concepts. So it's the idea that you would create a press release or you create a newsletter, for example, and you just simply push the content at consumers. So they don't necessarily have any room to engage with it in a meaningful way, in a two-way communicative way, is what I'm trying to say. So they can read articles, it can mean a lot to them in terms of what they're reading and that connection with the organization. I think about, for example, I went to Grand Valley for my undergrad, and the other day I received a newsletter, and I really enjoy that, but that's still an example of a push concept. So if I'm really interested in an article, I can look at the call to action and see, is there a website? Is there someone on social media I can follow or connect with? But in that moment when I'm reading the article, I'm not able to integrate my comments the same way I would with poll concepts. And that's where we're thinking about social media and digital media, right? The poll concepts, again, is that ability to pull in the consumers to engage in that immediate two-way communicative relationship. So some things that I want you to think about, and these might come up on job interviews or internship interviews when employers are saying, well, what would you do to make our site more popular with consumers? So again, remembering everything in public relations is about answering the question, why do readers need this information? Is it to entertain them? Is it to educate them? Is it to help change their beliefs? Making sure that they have all of the information that they need available. So you get to now embed hyperlinks. So you can create additional, we'll talk about in a few minutes, a YouTube channel for your organization. So if you have a number of experts who want to we want to address their expertise, what they're doing. These are things that are helpful for visitors, then great. So I know a number of universities will do this with their faculty in order to demonstrate the wealth of their faculty. When I was in the healthcare sector, we used to do this with a number of our physicians, especially when we're thinking about pretty basic ailments or symptoms. If we think about flu season or allergy season, for example, you could come to the home page and click on a link and go to our YouTube page where our physicians were then providing this information. SEO or search engine optimization, that's a really popular word. We call it a buzzword today. And essentially this is where we're writing in a way, especially with our headlines and our subheads, where search engines will very quickly recognize and catalog what we're using, right? The terms that we're using. And they do this so that when we go to Google or we go to MSN, for example, if we go to any search engine that you like, that it more quickly pulls up your particular website over that of your clients. There are ways in which we can pay for position and pay for inclusion now. And if you're in a market that is heavily saturated, so I know when I was working in the Detroit area in the healthcare sector, many of you are likely from that area. You know how many options you have for healthcare. There are a number of different hospitals. There are a number of different outpatient centers. You have a wide variety of choices. In that sense, some organizations chose to pay for position so that they were privileged over other organizations. So if you search, let's just go back. Let's say I have pink eye, right? If we type that in, pink eye, let's say we're in Royal Oak, Michigan, then maybe Beaumont will come up first, right? Beaumont is a large healthcare center in that side of the town. Then it's a nice way for you to say, since we debuted this on July 1st, we've had X new visitors every day. So there isn't necessarily a right or wrong in terms of tracking. We just want to make sure that we have benchmark data so we know where we are before we start a campaign, so we can see the effects of our communication plan. I just kind of gave a nice little foreshadowing of this on the previous slide when I mentioned ROI, or return on investment. And all that is acknowledging is, how do we evaluate our success? So how do we acknowledge if we spent $25,000 this year in public relations, how many new visitors do we have? How does that translate to people signing up for our new products or our services? And so we want to be able to say, this is how we use the money, and these are the changes, the positive changes that came of that. Another thing that you'll want to consider is this idea of a webcast. And a webcast can be virtually anything. We know now that a lot of organizations are having live Skype sessions with between their organization and those in the community. You can set it up, as I acknowledge, this idea of a YouTube channel to demonstrate continued expertise in a certain area. We know that it's very cost effective. Now we don't even need high-end cameras. Most people with smartphones, especially with Apple phones, end up having a high-end camera built into their smartphone, right? So it becomes very easy. Also, there are a number of free or low-cost video editing software apps and programs that we can use on our desktop computers. So again, we're not having to go and outsource this as we would have 10, 15 years ago. And it's easy. All we do is we need space on a server, right, to save these. We can also downgrade the file size so that we have everything saved on YouTube. So again, this webcasting is a quick, cost-efficient way to demonstrate expertise in any given area, right? So, and it's also a nice way to show the personality of your organization. So you can demonstrate from the CEO to those who are working in a more administrative role. If we want to be able to demonstrate who we are and what we do, showing videos, whether these are planned and scripted or where they tend to be more, what do I want to say, organic, where we're showing what we're doing in an event or the day-to-day life. That's a really nice way of being able to indicate who we are as an organization. The value of social media, right? So I think it's hard to underestimate the value of social media. For many of you personally, this is a large aspect of how you interact with others, how you get to know people, how you maintain relationships. And that also, all of those touch points apply in many ways to why organizations like social media. It's a way in which we can get to know our consumers deeper than we ever have before, right? It's a way in which we're able to make strong connections and allow them to have a two-way relationship with us. So then all of a sudden, they're communicating with us in their words in a platform that they're comfortable with, right? So we're going to go through a variety of different social media vehicles in detail now. Oh, I'm sorry, after we look at listservs, but I promise you throughout this lecture we're going to look at Twitter, we're going to look at blogs, we're going to look at Facebook, Instagram, and we know that more and more of these vehicles are being developed every day. But at the end of the day, the nice thing is all of them typically serve the same function. To develop and to maintain your brand and to create relationships with stakeholders. Something else I want you to think about are listservs. Now, this is something that you may have used if you're part of a special organization or network. An example is many of you taking this public relations writing courses. You might already be if your organization stands for the Public Relations Organization. You're the RSO for Public Relations. Or you don't have to be a public relations student, major. You can simply be interested in it. Think about that RSS. And that just stands for Real Simple Syndication. It's a specialized email list. The icon that you'll commonly see in communication. So think about Huffington Post is a site that it goes out every day. I will glance at pretty much every day. It has job postings. There are certain feeds there that if someone is looking for subjects to complete a special study, RSS button. It also and it will automatically push new books that are being released. So anything where we're able to when a particular writer authors another article, or if we're thinking about blogs, on another blog post is issued, client that you selected. I know that means class, or instead of putting the onus on me as a blog reader to kind of have a variety of different listservs for the different stakeholders that you engage with. I'm thinking about Western Michigan University. The other nice thing we're gonna keep talking about tracking here. Listserv or email list. We're able to we could subscribe to if you're faculty, if you're interested in certain aspects of research, if you're more interested in teaching. So that then they not only are we able to say, oh, look at these comments that we're getting, or the number of likes, based on what we elect. We can see we have a number. This is the amount of people who are subscribing to us, right, through our Real Simple syndication. So the explosion of blogs. Blog is just short for weblog, right? So essentially, blogs started as online journals, in a way, online diaries. And now we see, obviously, they're not just used for personal reflective uses, but organizations use them. I'm seeing now when I do a lot of work in organizational communication or internal communication, a lot of CEOs starting and maintaining blogs. So these can either be, and most often are directed to their employees, especially in large organizations, as a way to have an informal dialogue that's ongoing within employees. Other organizations choose to have blogs in which they open up to external stakeholders, right? So we know it's an easy way to reach large amount of audiences, very, very minimal startup cost, if any. Most of the time now you can blog for free. If you want to add a logo and personalize otherwise, again, these end up being, even for professional uses, you can get them for $10 or under a month. The nice thing too about blogs, and I mean this tends to be true with social media, is it's pretty informal in terms of the writing. So we're really looking at this as more of a conversation. So the language that you're using in your client research report, for example, would not be the same language likely that we're going to see in your blog. The other thing, they're very easy to update, and we can also embed hyperlinks if we want. We can direct users to our YouTube page, just a variety of options for us. So in terms of blogs, why do we do them? Right. So as I noted previously, we exchange information on relevant issues. This might be, we can read blogs about everything. There are a couple of bloggers that I follow. I really enjoy to cook, so I will look and see what they're doing, what they recommend, new recipes that they will create. The audience, again, in that sense, just very informal. Right, so it helps me to make healthful food for my family. And typically I'm looking for things that are 30 minutes or less because, like most other people, my time is pretty limited. And the other thing that's nice about blogs too, and I think if I'm going to carry through with this idea of following these cooking blogs, they include a print option. So if there are ever any recipes that I wanted to save and I felt like I needed a hard copy, or better yet, because my mom still resists anything electronic, so I can print off an actual hard copy for her in a way that's formatted correctly. Other things here, as I mentioned, make sure you're using informal language. Right? We want to make sure that people feel like they're conversing with you, not that they're reading a report. I mentioned too this idea that we can do other links, and you have the ability to include podcasts. And we know podcasts are on the rise, right? Both from larger sources. So if we think about the folks who bring us cereal and all of the popularity they've had with that, but just individuals on a daily basis are creating their own podcasts and having a lot of success with that. Some other options for you are obviously to use Facebook, and our book spends some time talking about MySpace, which isn't as relevant as it has been in the past. But remembering as an organization, thinking about the ways that you want to engage with your stakeholders. Right? So you might think about having videos. A lot of them will have contests. You can participate in short quizzes. Other thing, they offer coupons, right? So all of those are ways in which, for entertainment or just for more brand recognition, that we can engage with a particular organization that way. And as we say here, we can friend them, we can align ourselves and our networks to them. I've mentioned YouTube a number of times in this lecture because it really is a fantastic channel for you to consider as a public relations practitioner. Okay? And especially at my last bullet point here, the emphasis on all the ways, especially to PR, that you can use YouTube. So identify audiences, you're able to demonstrate the expertise of your organization and individuals in your organization. It's an easy way to respond to a crisis, especially if we need to provide detailed information that we want people to be able to return to. Certainly you can still use the live news media, and it is easier and easier to record those segments and play them back, but YouTube makes it much, much easier. You can also in this way engage with relevant journalists and bloggers. If we think about Flickr or any other photo sharing site, again, very easy for purposes of class. You're going to be doing some Instagram posts. And again, everything for class, especially with your social media, will be set to private because you will not actually be, how do I say this? You won't actually be publishing tweets or Instagram posts on behalf of your client, but you will be doing them on Twitter and on Instagram so that you can demonstrate in the ePortfolio to future employers that you can sustain a conversation on behalf of an organization over several weeks. That's what they're looking for. Also commonly referred to as microblogging. We know a maximum of 140 characters. The nice thing here is you have the opportunity in a very small space to engage with your stakeholders. We can also in this way retweet messages. So especially if we recognize that our organization is well liked, we have a number of people who are talking about us. What comes to mind is Brookside Chocolates. They have a television campaign right now where they actually integrate user tweets. So someone will say, Brookside Chocolates, can I come work for you, or can I represent you? And so they will intertwine that into their other types of promotional materials. So we have the opportunity also to retweet for your organization. You can participate in things like Throwback Thursday if this makes sense in what you do. But at the end of the day, it just gives us another channel to reach our stakeholders. What is important with social media such as Twitter and blogging, Instagram too, I want you to make sure if you're doing this on behalf of an organization or a client that you develop a schedule. What that means is you know how often you plan to tweet on behalf of the organization. You're doing this 3 times a week, 5 times a week. And then it's also important too that ahead of time you determine the content of the messages. So I'm not saying that these all have to be scripted, but I want you thinking about which percentage are reaching out to this audience, which are action oriented, which are based on entertainment, which are grounded in education. The content aspect is going to differ for all of your organizations, but being mindful about it, make sure that you are using social media and Twitter in this example in a comprehensive, well thought out manner. I think especially when we use something like Twitter, we use it personally, and then it's so quick and easy to tweet that we can fall into the negative trap of simply saying, oh, it's Monday, okay, I have to do a tweet, okay, let's do this on behalf of the organization. When really we want to look at this as we would anything else, a strategic communication vehicle. Some ways in which you can use Twitter for PR, and again, you're going to be able to read a couple of ancillary readings this week that are located in the module. To have some other perspectives on Twitter and Instagram and PR. But a quick run through, right? So we can publicize. We talked previously about retweeting. Live tweeting, important too, especially if we are doing some sort of event. Television shows, especially contest shows. So I'm thinking The Voice, for example. They're really good at live tweeting. So they're asking you to tweet during performances, and also tweets are used as a means to calculate who the winner is. What we're seeing more commonly too, as we're talking about press releases this week, is that some journalists and bloggers are saying, don't email me a pitch, tweet me a pitch. And that's because you have 140 characters to convey your message. It makes it easier for them to weed through what they see as being a press release that they want to share with their audiences or one that they don't. Instagram, again, you're going to read about this in greater detail in the ancillary reading. But as I noted before, Instagram, like any of these other social media vehicles, it's a means to build your personal brand. Instagram, we're sharing our brand, our identity through pictures. So some things you can think about, do we have a new product or service that we can take a picture of? Do we have a new hire? For some organizations, this won't make sense, but for many it will. We might want to do some before and after pictures of a venue if we have an upcoming event, recent awards, right? These are just 4 ideas here. Anything that you can communicate in a visual manner likely make sense for your Instagram. A number of organizations now are doing text subscriptions. We can see it in ways in which people want to make money. I think I get a text from Target, I think, in terms of different sales and promotions, ways in which we can also use this to generate more good is, for example, the Red Cross in times of crisis. I have mentioned Haiti here. They set up a mechanism where you can text and tell them how much you want to donate to particular disaster relief. This can be really good for employees as well. Texting not only in terms of promotions, but if we have an emergency. So many of you are likely signed up on Western Michigan University's emergency service. That's an example here, how we can receive those texts in real time. We've talked quite a bit about podcasts here. They're easy to film. We can do audio ones, we can do video ones, but again, very cost effective. And they're a way we can do very targeted details. So if we want to do an audience or a podcast just on how to complete your FAFSA or how to complete your college application, we can do that. And then finally, one of the last things we're going to look at are, here we have QR codes. We know that there's a continuing evolution of smartphones and tablets. Think about Pokemon Go and everything that's doing now, and many people are arguing that that is actually now social media, where we're actually getting together with others and socializing through social media. But I imagine with the popularity of that particular app and the evolution of what smartphones can do, that Google's doing more and more to create virtual reality options for organizations who are interested on their web platforms. So I believe we're going to see explosions here in the near future.